higher ladders that you believe in, and therefore that you can reach higher and higher stages. Right? The condition for that, though, is that you don't let that moral compass misfire and take you further away. It's possible to do that. But depending on what moral philosophy you have, you either don't believe in a ladder at all, or your ladder will be of a different length. And your good or evil deeds can only be as meaningful as the ladder, to use your metaphor, that you believe in. Right? So if I don't believe in eternal existence or an afterlife, then my intention or my deeds can never have that eternal dimension. Right? It's based on what ladder you believe in. Now, that doesn't mean that if I create a false ladder, that it's going to have that effect. Right? If I believe in a certain ladder and it ends up not actually being true, then it isn't really a ladder. But the ladder that I believe in will inform my intentions and whether or not I can do a good deed at all, and if so, what type of good deed or what level of good deed I can perform. The second question is whether that ladder is actually just a figment of my imagination or it's actually a ladder that does exist. Right? So you're right that practical good does not have lasting power, does not have staying power, but there's different types of practical good, and then there's different types of a more altruistic or an otherworldly or a true spiritual existence that can exist. And that does depend on where we place God in our universe. Right? And so to come back now to your question earlier, what was your question that we were going to answer at the end of the, do you remember?
It was about what Islamic utilitarianism, if that's not the criteria to go by, what is the criteria we should go by to reach God or to live best life?
Yeah, what is the criteria that we should go by then, right? If practical good, right, which I think is very close to what you were saying. How much time do we have?
We just have a few more minutes, but it depends on how long you can stay. Or just
How long do we stay?
Yeah, no, an hour and a half.
No?
there.
Good to go with that.
So maybe like another half an hour.
Another,
Yeah.
are you guys comfortable staying for another 15-20 minutes, or?
Maybe we can officially end the program whenever you
Yeah, if anyone needs to get somewhere, go ahead and take off now.
Well, if the majority want to leave now, then let's try to get some closure now. If the majority wants to stay, then we can postpone that step for a couple more minutes. So who's going to be able to stay? Who wants to? All right, majority. All right, so just to say a few thoughts on it for those who do want to leave. If utilitarianism isn't the best way to approach God, then assuming that a person believes in God or believes in something deeper, what we should take are an analysis of what our motives are, a reflection within ourselves to our strengths as a person, our weaknesses as a person, and what our motives are. And then compare that with what we can definitively say are the dictates of our internal moral compass or our intellect. Right? Like I said in the beginning, I know that I'm not the smartest person who ever walked the face of the earth. Right? But I do understand certain things. And I might not have the strongest moral compass, but I do know certain things are right and wrong. Right? To understand what I can base my actions on, that requires a great deal of humility, because many of the things that I know the most firmly are the things that I really have no basis of knowing. So to go back and look at my intellectual decisions on what I know is absolutely wrong. I absolutely know that, for example, slavery is always evil. For most of history, the majority of humanity probably thought that slavery was a very good system. So is that really my intellect? Or is that a product of my culture? Or some combination of the other things? Can I really say that definitively or not? With that humility, to go back, and I'm not saying slavery is good, I'm just using that as an example. But to go back and try to understand what can I truly say is is a solid understanding that I have in my mind, and what is a solid, immutable part of my moral compass. It's not from culture, it's not just from circumstance that I happen to be born at this day in this society, that's truly part of my humanity. Right? It'll be not much, but it'll be something to go on. If we're humble enough with ourselves, we'll realize that our mind is not as powerful as we thought it was, and even our moral compass is not as clear as we thought it was, but we do have something to go on. Right? Like euthanasia. Euthanasia is not something that our moral compass, for most of us, can answer definitively. Right? To kill somebody out of mercy. Is that better, or to let them, or to try to preserve their life so they can die a natural death? Right? So these are some of the areas where to torture somebody who we know has a secret that can cause the death of hundreds of innocent people. Right? If I torture just one person, I might be able to save 150 people. We may have strong beliefs on that. We may have international laws on that. Or we may not, depending on who you ask. But the moral compass that we have within ourselves, we'd be dishonest if we said that we have a clear moral compass that gives us a clear answer. Because all of us have to think about it. And if we were in the shoes of having to make that decision, we'd have to wonder. So even our moral compass, it doesn't always give us unambiguous answers. But when we can reach with the humility and understanding of where our moral compass does place us, that is the foundation for our relationship with God. And we should use that then to place God at the center of our universe to understand how we can fill in the blanks. You see what I'm trying to say? It's actually a more complex process, but I wanted to put it in about a 5-minute summary. So we use that intellectual and moral compass. It's full of holes. Properly, it should be full of holes if we're honest with ourselves. And then we use that to develop our initial relationship with God so that He can fill in those holes. And it's a very careful process, because if we don't do it right, it can misfire. And we can have God telling us, we think, to go and ethnically cleanse the neighboring country. Right? Which has happened in history, and it happens today as well. People do it in the name of God. Or they do it in the name of not in the name of God, but in the name of their nation, whatever. So that's the process that we're going to try to get to. For those of you who would like to leave, then I think we can officially end the program, and we can continue for a few more minutes.
Just one quick second before anyone goes. Would you like to make an announcement?
Fine. Salaam alaikum.